everyone, I hope you're all well. Unlike all my other videos where I know I go on and on at the start, this one I'm just gonna get straight into, mainly because I need to catch up with a friend and I can't be late. So see it as a blessing in disguise. Now, house buying. We have purchased 3 separate properties. In each of those, I've learned new and different things to be able to really give you some strong tips in being able to secure your own dream home. This video is gonna give you 10 tips to make sure you stand out against all the other buyers. At the end, there's a bonus tip. This is where I'm going to be emailing you a template for the next 2 weeks only from the date of this video, and I'll explain everything when we get to that tip. Not a business or anything like that, so no strings attached, just something that I felt has secured me the property I want every single time. Make sure you hang around for that one. Some of these tips might be obvious. I can promise you there'll definitely be something in there that you wouldn't have considered before. Tip number 1 is when you know you're ready to buy that house, clear as much of your debt as possible. It will really help you secure a strong mortgage. There's this whole thing out there about take out credit cards because you need to show your history in terms of working with debt. Personally, that hasn't affected us at all. The only debt we have outside of mortgage is I had PayPal credit for £500. Yeah, that was mainly takeaways. But anyway, I have never ever been prevented from securing a mortgage. So I would refrain from trying to create debt to show that you've got a good history with it. It's not fact, at least in my experience. Rather, I would focus on clearing out as much of your debt as possible. Also, there are places where you can secure a free credit check. 1,000,000% go and do that. So if you just Google free credit checks, a ton of places will come up. You need to make sure that there is nothing on your record if you're about to apply for a mortgage. I remember once they didn't acknowledge a water payment we made and it was seen as a missed payment and it was stuck on my credit file. It's very frustrating. I was able to prove that I paid and they took it off, but things like that you just won't notice, please make sure you get a free credit check. Number 2 relates to securing a mortgage in principle. I think it's really good for understanding the threshold for when you're looking for a house. More importantly, I think it just confirms that as a buyer you are serious and you will be able to secure the money. A couple of things that might get tempting that I know does happen out there: never ever accept the offer of a false income. I know there's ways around to show that you're earning more money than you do, and it might seem really attractive at first. At the end of the day, if you can't afford it, you're gonna lose your house. It's not worth getting into trouble with mortgage repayments. What I would rather advise is start looking for a job that pays slightly more. As soon as you do that, you will secure a higher mortgage. I had a promotion to my current role. Literally the next day, I got a mortgage which gave 40,000 more. So rather than thinking short term of how can I show a higher income, actually if you can actively look for a job that will enable you to have the income to pay for the mortgage that you need. Number 3 is saving for a deposit and closing costs. I personally think the issue is less the mortgage, at least it has been for me, and much more paying all those upfront costs. You have the 10% deposit towards the house, 5% if you're a new buyer. You've got solicitor fees, you've got survey fees, if you need furniture for your new house, and then the bane of my life, stamp duty. I think we saved about £24,000 on the stamp duty holiday that came through after the pandemic. I think that's expired now, but we always had to pay more because we have other properties. Even then, the stamp duty price is insane. All of those things that you might not have accounted for, you need to have a good lump sum of cash accessible. And there's certain ways you can do this. You know, I used to just transfer a significant amount of my wages into an account that I knew I'd never access. Adds up much quicker than you realize. Even £250 a month, at the end of 10 months, that's 2.5 grand you've saved there. If someone's going to help you out and pay you some money towards your deposit, just know that they also ask for their bank statements to check the history of where they got the money from, just to make sure it's all legitimate. So just note that as well. Tip 4 is to reduce your spending 3, ideally 6 months before you're going to apply for your mortgage. This is slightly contradictory to a previous tip where I'm saying don't show false income, etc., because I'm then saying spend less than you usually would. But it is slightly different because there is a lot of contingency built in with mortgage repayments. When you're looking at maybe a few £100s less a month, it's already built in as a buffer anyway. I would say clothes, takeaways, all of those nice to haves, just significantly reduce it wherever you can. Generally, mortgages look back at 3-month bank statements to determine your outgoings. Sometimes it's 6. So I think you really need a focus period where you and if you have a partner, your partner are really dedicated to reducing that spending to make sure you can show a low level of expenditure. Tip number 5 is to start your search 1 year ahead of when you're actually looking to buy. So it took us how long? March, April, May, August, September, October, November. It took us 9 months to find and buy this property. We actually were through the process of buying a very different property. It was a townhouse. At the time, I thought it was amazing, but the person that owned that house was taking months and months to find somewhere new, and then in the end we had to drop out, unfortunately. Everything happens for a reason, because we then secured this house. On average, the process just to buy a house is between 4 and 8 months. And so I think it's really, really important to make sure that you build in a year ahead of time, start looking, so you can at least build a sense of where some of that compromise might be. And speaking of compromise, tip number 6 is to list all of your non-negotiables. This is so important. For me, non-negotiables was the area. I wasn't prepared to move out of London. It needed to be near a tube station. There needed to be a good school nearby. At least 3 bedrooms. We ended up with 4. We definitely wanted a garden. For some people, a drive is an absolute non-negotiable. Open plan kitchen, some people really don't like that. So various things, but you need to think about what you're not prepared to draw the line on, and it has to be really serious. You know, you can't think, well, I'm going to put this down, but even if they don't have it, I might consider it. In that case, don't put it down. I think that's really important. You're going to be asked about it with estate agents, and I think with you and your partner, just making sure that you're very clear on that will help your search so much. Number 7 is to sign up with as many estate agents as you can. You know, you'll say, I need 4 bedrooms, but they'll send you properties with 3 bedrooms. You'll say, not this area, and they'll send you properties in that area. But it's a risk worth taking, because for this house, we signed up with an agency. We got an email, and I saw just one picture, and it was the view from the garden looking back at the house. And I straight away phoned them, and I said, I want to book a viewing. And they're like, oh my God, it's been 30 seconds. We sent the email out. I was the first viewer, which is always helpful. Go into estate agents if you can, build a bit of a relationship. You also want them to know you're serious and you're able to. My video turned off there, no idea what happened. You also want them to know that you're serious and you can commit, so it helps with rapport. We weren't, unfortunately, with this property able to go into estate agents because obviously pandemic, but I think they've all opened up now and it is worthwhile. My sister-in-law actually drove around areas where she wanted to buy, and she found her property just by seeing a for sale sign. With that, if you've got time, is also worth doing. Just driving around the areas that you're interested in and maybe seeing some for sale signs and actually going and knocking on the door. Definitely sign up with agencies. They will all ask about your non-negotiables, so make sure you have that ready as well. Tip number 8 is, as you're booking the viewing, make sure you do your research. So you can now see what other houses on that road have sold and what price they've sold for. This will give you a really good idea of how much you want to negotiate. For me personally, I feel like for the sake of £5,000 or £10,000, I would rather just give the asking price. My husband feels very, very differently about this. So we had a bit of a debate on this. I really feel passionately that if you're in love with the house, what's the difference between 5 and 10,000 and securing your dream home? Saying that, I do think if you're going to negotiate, 5 or 10 grand is probably reasonable. I know some people go to 15, 20. I think anything more than 20 is insane. But I've also noticed it's different for different areas. There's places where offers are always made above the asking price, and then there's places where you can seriously negotiate down. I think the indication of going online and looking at how much house prices have recently sold for is good. It also tells you when houses haven't often been sold on that road. So where we've moved to now, most of the people have lived here for 15, 20 years. I think there's only been 3 houses sold in the last 10 years. That's a really good sign, because it shows people like the area, it works for them, and no real reason to move out. So, number 9, this is often overlooked. It was so important to me. When you book a viewing, make the effort. I got ready and made my husband get ready like we were going to the most important meeting. You look professional, you look the part. Please don't take more than one other person to the viewing with you. I know people want to take their kids or everyone else so they can make an informed decision, but there is unfortunately a perception made at the person coming to do the viewing. If you're having screaming kids or if you're coming in with really big families, it just doesn't create the impression of a committed buyer. I would go in, I would make so much effort to build rapport, whether it's with the estate agent, whether it's with the buyer. It makes such a difference. Other than one house where I genuinely think we went too low, for every house we've ever put an offer in, it has never ever been declined, and I genuinely think that is because they saw how serious we were, they saw how committed we were, they saw how professional we were. It made all the difference, I promise you. Of course, when you're there, you can talk about your kids. If you like the property, you can then book a second viewing, but That first time impression is everything. So make the effort, look the part, and take one other adult with you, and that is it. And compliment the house. Oh my God, they love it when people compliment the place. Just appreciate how nice it is. So this house, someone came that offered £25,000 more. They wanted to take all the fireplaces out because they wanted to put the property up for let. The owners of the property just didn't like that. They made so much effort with this house and they wanted it to be loved. They just really liked us, and I'm telling you now, it makes a difference. Make the effort. Number 10 is to allow an extra half an hour just to get a feel of the neighborhood. You never park in front of the property you're about to view. Park a few doors away at least and have a walk around. We don't really need to with this house because it's only a 10-minute walk from our last house. There was another house in a very different area that we were looking at. And I remember we walked into the co-op, we asked a member of staff and they were like, do you know what? Everything's a bit detached, it's not very well connected. And so everyone you talk to, I'd walk to someone going past saying, oh, how long have you lived here? What do you think? You know, they're not gonna say something that they don't mean. I think, you know, sometimes people say to knock on the neighbors' doors. I'm not too sure about that because I feel like actually you're kind of intruding on someone's privacy in a way. If they're out and about, then that's fine, but I wouldn't actually go and knock in someone's home. But that's open to perception. A lot of people think it's a really good way to know more, whereas I think it's best not to go that far. But yeah, definitely have a walk around, see what's in the area, get a real feel, and as you're doing it, think, if I lived here, how would I feel? One thing we did with this house is we went to the local park and I fell in love. There was such a community feel. It just, yeah, so those little things are really going to help enhance or take away from the place, so very important. Now we are on to the bonus tip number 11, and that is to send a really strong offer. So if you love the property and you want to send that first email, I've got an email that I have sent for every property, and it always makes an amazing impression. I can honestly say it's secured me every house to date. There's 4 orders of priority when you're a buyer. Number 1 is if you're a cash buyer, if you've just got the cash ready and available in the bank. That doesn't happen often. There are people in the world that are as fortunate as that. Second priority is if you're not in a chain. So it means you've got no commitment to sell your current property, you can just move straight in. For example, we put our last property up for let, so that meant quite high up in the priority list because it means it's unlikely there'll be any risk later down the line. Third priority, I think, is whoever makes the highest offer. Although don't forget, it's not just a case of coming in with, you know, 25, 50,000 more. You have to be able to show that you can afford that as well. And they need to look at commitment. There's no point getting someone who offers double the money, but then pulls out at the end. And then of course you've got mortgage in principle. It just means that you've got a mortgage that's ready, good to go. So no delay on that part. I think above all of that, we have seen often where we haven't hit many of those, but because we've made a good impression, because we made the effort to build rapport, they still like us and they've still chosen us above higher offers. And I would say of all the tips I've given today, that is probably the strongest one. It's really important to note that at any point up until you sign on the dotted line, either party can opt out. It's really disheartening, it's really stressful, and then also sometimes delays can happen, surveys can come back with really serious issues that you haven't considered, and it's really tough. Like, you know, it's happened with us. You feel so deflated, but alhamdulillah, everything happens for a reason. There is a better house waiting. It's a bit like a job, you know, you think this is your dream job and then you don't get it. You feel really down, but then another job comes up and you think, oh, that's my dream job. You've got to have that level of patience and that level of understanding of whatever happens, happens for a reason. I've seen so many people just become so sad because they didn't secure the house they want. It is hard and it is horrible, especially when you're like going right through a process and then it doesn't work out. But honestly, like, keep going. Houses come up all the time. If one doesn't work out, another one will, inshallah. So from 2 weeks of the date that this video is released, I'm offering to just drop you a template of that offer email. It's obviously not going to guarantee you the house, but it is helpful just having something that I know has worked for me. I'll also list the 4 priorities that really make you stand out in terms of a buyer, and you can put in or take out whatever's relevant. So you've got 2 options. Either you can leave your email in the comments box, but if you'd rather it wasn't public, just drop me a private message on Instagram. On my profile, you'll see a message option. click on message and then drop me your email address. I do have to be really strict in that it is only available for 2 weeks from the date that this video is released. I'll put the cutoff point on the description box, and that is only because it's the only way I'll be able to manage this. I hope that was helpful. I've tried to share everything I know that has really helped me secure houses in the past. If there's any questions, anything that wasn't clear, please leave a comment. You know that I'll always get back as best as I can in as much detail as I can for at least the first few weeks in terms of any comments. After that, I do try to pick them up, but I have to say it's probably not as consistent because I get distracted with other things. But definitely for the first few weeks, I will acknowledge and respond to every single comment and try to give you as much information as I can in terms of anything that wasn't clear and anything that wasn't covered on this video. All the best with your house search if you're currently looking, or I hope you're getting mentally prepared if you're going to be looking soon. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Take care.